Alright, so I'll be putting the finishing touches to this particular selection here. What I'll do is I'll zoom in here, and I want to add 2 or 3 more points. So let's go up here to the plus and click one here and one here, and then you can also drag them around. Just get close enough. That's one of the new features in 7.1, is that you can both insert or add points as well as move the existing ones around. You just need to get close enough to them. And with that now we'll be able to select that. Now how do we do this? You have this curve that identifies a portion of the image, and you want that curve to turn into a selection, to be the outline or the border of a selection. Well, we've already had this feature right here, fill the curve, drawing it into the alpha channel, which is different from this one, right? If we draw something like if we want to just have it plain green, we can select the green color and then click here to fill the shape with the current fill settings. Plain green in this case. Now it could be a gradient, it could be a text pattern, a texture pattern, but what we want to do instead is to pick this area up as a custom brush. And the way to do that now is to actually render this path into the alpha channel, and that's that. And now there's a new mode. There's 2 new modes. We can add to the selection or we can subtract from the selection, and that's really interesting, because then you can make much more sophisticated selections with those curves. Here we go in replace, and you'll see the marching ants now. And now that we have the marching ants, we can go and pick that up. So we go to the brush, use selection as a brush, Control B, and that's that. So we can go and select brush, store and manage it, and then at this point we can see that the background is transparent because that was not inside the selection, and this little green wormy thing is what's in the brush, and you can go now and paint with that. So go back to the paint, to the brush tool, and paint. You can stamp it down wherever you want. You can do whatever you need to do with that particular custom brush. Alright, so that's one way to use the curve. It's to create a selection by editing the outline of that selection. Basically sort of a vector based editing. So for instance, another example might be perhaps we want just this middle section right here, and so what you could do is you can go back to the curve tool and delete the existing curve, the prior one, and start all over, and basically say, okay, let's create a curve that goes from here to here. And right now it looks like it's already creating a closed curve because we have this flag checked here. If we didn't, it would be an open curve. And the moment you have 4 points, it's doing a spline interpolation. Again, if you wanted instead to have a straight line, you can make this a polygonal interpolation or a linear interpolation. The one we'll probably use in this case is the spline and also the curve that's closed. So we can go here and then transition to the other side, create a few more points, and gradually create the outline of the area of interest. Alright, and then we can do a little bit of fine-tuning. So maybe we need a few more points, like one here, down here. Let's zoom in a little bit. Maybe we need another point here. So you see how you can quite easily add more points just by clicking where you want them. And then also, if you have points that need to be moved around a little bit, you can do that too. Click another one here, move this one up further, perhaps one more over here, and pretty quickly we have our collection of control points along that curve. Maybe this one we'll put here, and one more over there. Alright, so this is an example where we'll use this simply to identify an area of interest that we want to pick up and isolate from the background, perhaps to create a custom brush from it. There's a couple of other reasons why you might want to do that. Maybe darken it, maybe fill it with a plain color, maybe paint over it, and so on. And of course, to prevent other areas from being affected by all these operations, you will need to first create a selection mask, and that's exactly what we can do here. With that curve now defined to hold this little pod, if you want to call it that, we can go and click here to fill the curve, drawing into the alpha channel, which means in replace mode we are now essentially selecting that area. And so now that that selection is done, we can go and pick it up again as a custom brush and store it to manage it, and now we have a second custom brush that's stored. So we can paint with this one, and I'll paint over here, or we can paint with this one, and I'll paint with this over here. Alright, so that's one way to look at it, just for a static selection. If you have a static image, single image, and you want to identify a portion of that image that needs to be selected, and it's easier to perhaps work with a couple of control points along that spline or straight line curve interpolation. There is actually more that you can do with that, and that goes into the rotoscoping. We'll look at that in the next module. The rotoscoping allows you to actually make that curve a series of curves across the frames of your animation, and then you can create a set of keyframes for the curves. The shape itself, the position, all these points can be moving. The curve can be changing from one frame to the other and across the entire animation. And in doing so, you can have it render a new alpha channel for its own frame as it goes through these frames, and then you can basically use that as a mat that dynamically changes and tracks an object, and there's a whole lot of things you can do with that. So let's go and start exploring that.